In the year 2356, humanity had become a formidable spacefaring civilization, known and respected across the galaxy. The United Earth Federation, UEF, had established colonies on countless worlds, maintaining a powerful fleet to protect its interests. As they expanded, many alien races either aligned with or distanced themselves from humanity, whose rapid growth and technological prowess made them a force to be reckoned with. One such race, the peaceful Larians, faced dire circumstances. Renowned for their expertise in bioengineering and their harmonious lifestyle, the Larians' home planet, Larus, was a vibrant world full of life. But this paradise had become a war zone. The Zarks, a ruthless and technologically advanced species, had launched a brutal invasion. With no military to defend themselves, the Larians were helpless against the assault. High Chancellor Era, leader of the Larians, stood in the Grand Council chamber, her heart heavy. Activating an ancient communication device, a relic from an era of interstellar unity, she sent out a heartfelt plea for help. Her message, broadcast across the galaxy, was simple, a desperate call for aid. As the distress signal reached the HSS Resolute, Captain Ethan Reynolds, known for taking on impossible missions, listened intently. He knew the Zarks well, their reputation for brutality making them a feared adversary. The thought of a peaceful race being annihilated stirred a deep sense of duty in him. After hours of contemplation, Reynolds called his senior officers into the briefing room. "Listen to this," he said as he played the Larian message. "We can't ignore this. The Larians are defenseless. If we don't intervene, they'll be wiped out." Commander Cortez Vega, his trusted second-in-command, hesitated. "But Captain, the Zarks are formidable. Engaging them directly could risk the Resolute and the crew." Reynolds leaned forward, meeting his officers' gazes. "I know the risks, but I also know what's right. We've faced worse odds before and come out on top. This is about more than one mission. It's about standing up for those who can't defend themselves." The room fell silent, the gravity of his words sinking in. Each officer understood the stakes. Lieutenant James Hunter broke the silence, his voice firm. "We're with you, Captain. Let's show the Zarks what happens when they mess with the wrong species." With the decision made, preparations for the mission began. The Resolute, a sleek and powerful ship, was a marvel of human engineering. Equipped with advanced weaponry and a hyperdrive capable of covering vast distances in hours, the crew was ready for the challenges ahead. On the bridge, Captain Reynolds surveyed the activity, feeling pride in his team's professionalism. "Plot a course to the Larian system," he ordered. "We need to get there fast." "Aye, Captain," Lieutenant Hunter replied, his fingers flying over the controls. "Course plotted. We'll reach Larian space in 6 hours." Reynolds' mind raced with potential scenarios. He knew the Zarks would not back down easily, but he also knew that surprise could be their greatest advantage. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Arya Kapoor in the ship's armory prepared weapons and equipment, ensuring everything was ready for battle. As she checked the plasma rifles, she thought about the Larians' plight. This mission embodied her desire to use her skills to protect others. In the medical bay, Dr. Olivia Carter coordinated with her team, preparing for the expected casualties. She was determined to save as many lives as possible, both human and Larian alike. As the Resolute neared the Larian system, the crew felt the weight of their mission. They weren't just fighting for their own survival, but for the survival of an entire race. When the ship emerged from hyperspace, they were met with a scene of devastation. Larus, once a beautiful and vibrant planet, now lay scarred and burning. The Zarks' fleet loomed ominously in orbit, their massive ships bristling with weaponry. The Resolute's sensors detected multiple distress signals from the planet's surface, each one a desperate cry for help. "Activate battle stations," Captain Reynolds commanded, his voice steady. "Prepare to engage the enemy. We're not leaving until every Larian is safe." The Resolute surged forward, its weapon systems coming online. The first volley of plasma torpedoes streaked toward the nearest Zark ship, marking the start of a fierce and desperate battle. The humans had arrived, ready to show the galaxy what they were capable of. Reynolds knew the coming hours would test them all, but he also knew they had no choice but to fight. The fate of the Larians depended on their courage, and he was determined not to fail them. As the HSS Resolute entered the heart of the Larian system, the extent of the devastation became clear. The once pristine planet was now a battlefield, its lush landscapes marred by craters and raging fires. The Zark's fleet, with its sleek and menacing ships, maintained a tight grip around the planet, their weapons bombarding the surface relentlessly. The Larians, known for their advanced bioengineering but lacking a significant military force, were on the brink of annihilation. Captain Reynolds stood resolute on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the tactical displays. "Open a channel to the Larian Council," he ordered. Communications Officer Lila Morris quickly established a link. The screen flickered to life, revealing High Chancellor Era, her pale blue skin and large, expressive eyes betraying the exhaustion and desperation she felt. "High Chancellor Era, this is Captain Ethan Reynolds of the HSS Resolute," Reynolds said. "We received your distress call and are here to assist. How can we help?" Era's relief was palpable. "Captain Reynolds, we are eternally grateful. The Zarks have been relentless. Our cities are in ruins, and countless lives have been lost. We need your protection to evacuate our people and drive the Zarks away." Reynolds nodded. "Understood. We're preparing to engage the Zarks fleet and establish a safe corridor for evacuation. Stay strong, Chancellor." After the communication ended, Reynolds turned to his crew. "All right, people, you heard the Chancellor. Our priority is to secure the planet and evacuate as many Larians as possible. Hunter, what's the status on weapons and shields?" "All systems are green, Captain," Lieutenant Hunter replied. "Weapons are hot and shields are at full power. We're ready to give the Zarks a fight they won't forget." Reynolds allowed himself a grim smile. "Good. Let's show them what happens when they threaten innocent lives. Engage the Zarks fleet and protect the evacuation points." The Resolute surged forward, its advanced weaponry lighting up the dark expanse of space. Plasma torpedoes streaked through the void, slamming into the nearest Zarks ships. The enemy responded with a barrage of energy blasts, and the battle erupted into a chaotic fury. The Resolute's surprise attack caught the Zarks off guard, allowing the humans to score several early victories. Zarks ships exploded in fiery bursts, their sleek hulls no match for the Resolute's devastating firepower. Despite the initial success, the Zarks quickly regrouped. Their superior numbers and ferocity began to show. Captain Reynolds barked orders, his mind racing to stay one step ahead of the enemy. "Hunter, focus fire on their command ships. Kapoor, reroute power to the forward shields. We need to hold this line at all costs." Lieutenant Arya Kapoor's fingers flew over the console, diverting energy where it was most needed. "Forward shields reinforced, Captain," she reported. "We're holding, but we can't take this level of fire for long." The Zarks retaliated with relentless precision, their energy weapons hammering the Resolute's shields. The ship shuddered with each impact, but the crew held firm, their focus unwavering despite the intensity of the battle. On the surface of Larus, the Larians began their evacuation, guided by coordinates provided by the Resolute. They made their way to designated safe zones, where shuttles from the Resolute were landing. The sight of the massive human starship in the sky, fighting to protect them, filled the Larians with hope and awe. Commander Cortez Vega coordinated the evacuation efforts from the bridge. Shuttle teams prioritized the young and the injured. "We need to move quickly, every second counts." Dr. Olivia Carter worked tirelessly in the medical bay, preparing for the influx of refugees. "Medical team, get ready. We're going to be overwhelmed, but we can do this. Every life saved is a victory." As the battle raged on, the Resolute's crew demonstrated extraordinary bravery and skill. Communications Officer Lila Morris ensured constant updates between the bridge and the evacuation teams. Lieutenant Hunter's tactical genius kept the Zarks at bay, exploiting every weakness he could find in the enemy's lines. "We can't let them break through," Captain Reynolds shouted. "Hold the line and keep those evacuation routes open." Realizing the human determination, the Zarks intensified their assault. The Resolute's shields flared and flickered, barely holding under the sustained barrage. Yet, the crew's spirit remained unbroken. Each member played their part with unwavering dedication. Their collective effort was a testament to humanity's resilience. Despite the overwhelming odds, the humans' resolve began to turn the tide. Zarnak ships fell one by one, their formations crumbling under the relentless human assault. As the Larians watched the fierce defense unfold, hope began to rise. The evacuation continued, with more and more Larians reaching the safety of the shuttles. The battle stretched on for hours, and though fatigue set in, the crew of the Resolute pressed on. They knew the fate of an entire race rested on their shoulders. Captain Reynolds, standing firm on the bridge, embodied the indomitable spirit of humanity. "We're not leaving until every Larian is safe," he declared, his voice resolute. Slowly, the tide of battle began to shift in favor of the Resolute. The humans' determination and tactical brilliance started to yield results. With each Zarnak ship destroyed, the Larians' chances of survival increased. Though the fierce battle for Larus was far from over, the humans had proven one thing. They would not abandon the helpless and would fight to the last breath to protect those in need. Despite their initial success in surprising the Zark's fleet, the crew of the HSS Resolute quickly realized that victory was far from guaranteed. The Zarks, known for their brutal efficiency and advanced technology, began to regroup. Their sleek, menacing ships closed ranks and launched a coordinated counterattack, testing the Resolute's defenses to their limits. Captain Reynolds braced himself as the ship shuddered under the impact of multiple enemy blasts. "Damage report," he barked. Lieutenant Kapoor, monitoring the ship systems, responded immediately. "Forward shields are holding, but just barely. We've sustained damage to the portside thrusters. Repairs are underway, but it'll take time." Commander Vega, her eyes fixed on the tactical display, spoke up. "Captain, the Zarks are concentrating their fire on our weak points. They're trying to box us in." Reynolds nodded, his mind racing through potential strategies. "Hunter, we need to break their formation, target their lead ships and create an opening. Kapoor, reroute power from non-essential systems to shields and weapons. We need every bit of power we can muster." Hunter's fingers danced over his console. "Aye, Captain. Targeting lead ships now. We'll give them something to think about." The Resolute's weapons roared to life, sending a barrage of plasma torpedoes toward the Zark's formation. The enemy ships deftly maneuvered to evade, but the humans' precise targeting found its mark. Several Zark's vessels were hit, causing explosions that temporarily disrupted their assault. But the Zarks were relentless. Their return fire was swift and devastating, and the Resolute's shields flared and dimmed under the onslaught. The ship groaned as it absorbed the impacts, but the crew held tight, maintaining their focus and composure despite the mounting pressure. In the midst of the chaos, Enan Morris intercepted a transmission from the Zark's flagship. "Captain, I'm picking up a message from the enemy commander. They're demanding our immediate surrender and threatening total annihilation if we don't comply." Reynolds set his jaw, his resolve hardening. "We don't negotiate with butchers. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. We need to keep them off balance." As the battle raged on, the toll on the Resolute became evident. The ship, designed for endurance, was reaching its limits. Damage reports continued to pour in, and the medical bay was filling with injured crew members. Dr. Carter and her team worked tirelessly, tending to the wounded with unwavering dedication. Sensing an opportunity, the Zarks intensified their assault. Their ships closed in, launching coordinated strikes aimed at overwhelming the Resolute's defenses. Despite the crew's best efforts, the ship was pushed to its breaking point. But in the heat of the battle, Lieutenant Kapoor's sharp mind continued to seek a solution. As she monitored the enemy's attack patterns, something caught her eye. A subtle but consistent weakness in the Zark's formation, a potential vulnerability that could turn the tide. "Captain, I found something," Kapoor called out. "The Zarks are using a coordinated attack pattern, but it's creating a slight delay in their defensive maneuvers. If we can exploit that, we might be able to break through their lines." Reynolds nodded, a spark of hope igniting in his eyes. "Good work, Kapoor. Hunter, adjust our targeting to exploit that weakness. Vega, prepare the crew for a full-scale counterattack. This is our chance." With the new strategy in place, the crew of the Resolute steeled themselves for the next phase of the battle. Lieutenant Hunter adjusted the targeting algorithms to focus on the identified weakness in the Zark's formation, while Kapoor optimized the ship's power distribution for maximum efficiency. "Targeting coordinates set," Hunter reported. "Ready to engage on your command, Captain." Reynolds took a deep breath, sweeping his gaze across his determined crew. "All right, people, this is it. On my mark. Engage." The Resolute surged forward, its weapon systems unleashing a focused barrage aimed at the Zarks' weak points. Caught off guard by the precision and intensity of the attack, the Zarks struggled to maintain their formation. Several Zark ships were hit, their defenses faltering under the concentrated fire. The humans pressed their advantage, exploiting the opening created by Kapoor's analysis. The Resolute's weapons hammered the enemy fleet, forcing the Zarks into a defensive posture. For the first time since the battle began, the tide seemed to be turning in favor of the humans. On the surface of Larus, the evacuation continued with renewed urgency. Larian shuttles, guided by the Resolute's coordinates, ferried refugees to safety. High Chancellor Era monitored the progress from a makeshift command center, her heart lifted by the sight of the humans fighting valiantly above. "Thank the stars for the humans," she murmured to one of her aides. "Their courage and determination might just save us all." Back on the Resolute, the crew worked in unison, their efforts synchronized and precise. The tactical displays showed the Zark's fleet faltering, their ships unable to maintain their relentless assault. But the battle was far from over. "Captain, we're receiving another communication from the Zark's flagship," Enan Morris reported. "They're demanding our surrender again, but there's something different this time. Their tone sounds desperate." Reynolds' eyes narrowed. "Patch it through." The screen flickered to life, revealing the grim visage of Commander Zor, the Zark's fleet leader. His expression was a mix of anger and frustration. "Human vessel, this is your final warning," he snarled. "Surrender now or face total destruction." Reynolds met Zor's gaze without flinching. "Your threats mean nothing to us. We will not abandon the Larians. If you want this planet, you'll have to go through us." Zor's eyes flickered with uncertainty. "You're making a grave mistake, human. The Zarks do not forget, and they do not forgive." "We'll see about that," Reynolds replied, cutting the transmission. "Hunter, continue the assault." "Kapoor, how are those repairs coming?" "Making progress, Captain," Kapoor responded. "Portside thrusters are back online, and I've rerouted additional power to the shields. We're holding steady." As the battle raged on, the crew's determination began to pay off. Though still formidable, the Zark's fleet was clearly feeling the pressure. Their formations were breaking, and their attacks lacked the earlier precision. The humans' relentless assault was taking its toll. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the Zark's fleet began to retreat. One by one, their ships pulled back, disengaging from the fight. The Resolute, battered but unbroken, held its position, watching as the enemy withdrew. A cheer erupted on the bridge as the crew celebrated their hard-fought victory. Reynolds allowed himself a rare smile, his heart swelling with pride for his team. "We did it," he said softly. "We held the line." The immediate threat had been repelled, but the battle came at a cost. The Resolute had sustained significant damage, and the toll on the crew was heavy. But in that moment, they had achieved something remarkable. A glimmer of hope for the Larians and a testament to humanity's unyielding spirit. With the Zark's fleet retreating, Captain Reynolds knew this was a critical moment. The Zarks wouldn't stay away for long, and the Larians needed a permanent solution to their plight. Though tired and battle-weary, the Resolute's crew immediately began planning their next move. They knew to truly secure the Larian safety, they had to strike at the heart of the Zark's fleet. Reynolds called a strategy meeting with his senior officers in the Resolute's war room. The holographic table in the center of the room displayed the Zark's fleet's known positions and the layout of their flagship. Lieutenant Kapoor's analysis had revealed a potential weakness in the Zark's command structure, and they planned to exploit it. "Kapoor, Hunter, Vega," Reynolds began, his voice steady and determined. "We need to hit the Zarks where it hurts. Their command ship is the key. If we can disable it, we can throw their entire fleet into disarray." Kapoor pointed to a specific point on the holographic map. The Zark's flagship relies on a central command system that coordinates their fleet's movements. If we can infiltrate and disable this system, we can effectively neutralize their advantage. Hunter nodded, his tactical mind already formulating a plan. "We need a small elite team to board the flagship and take out their command center. It's a risky move, but if we pull it off, it could turn the tide in our favor." Reynolds agreed. "Prepare the team. We'll take the Resolute in close and create a diversion to give our boarding party a chance." Commander Vega, always composed and ready, added, "We'll need to coordinate with the Larians on the ground to ensure their safety while we engage the flagship. Era and her council need to be kept in the loop." With the plan set, preparations for the mission began immediately. The boarding team, handpicked for their skills and bravery, suited up in the Resolute's armory. Captain Reynolds would lead the mission himself, along with Lieutenant Kapoor, Commander Vega, and a select group of Marines trained for covert operations. As they boarded the assault shuttle, the rest of the Resolute's crew prepared to engage the Zark's fleet once more. The ship's engineers worked tirelessly to patch up damage and optimize systems for the upcoming battle. Dr. Carter and her medical team readied themselves for the inevitable casualties. The Resolute approached the Zark's fleet under the guise of a strategic withdrawal. As expected, the Zarks took the bait, regrouping and preparing for a counteroffensive. At the last moment, the Resolute turned and charged directly at the Zark's flagship, weapons blazing. "All hands, prepare for battle," Reynolds' voice echoed through the ship. The Resolute's guns fired in rapid succession, creating a chaotic battlefield that masked the shuttle's approach to the Zark's flagship. The shuttle docked with the enemy ship, and the boarding team swiftly disembarked. They moved with precision and silence, neutralizing any Zark soldiers they encountered. The corridors of the flagship were a labyrinth of sleek metallic passageways, dimly lit and patrolled by heavily armed guards. Lieutenant Kapoor led the way, her engineering expertise invaluable in bypassing security systems and unlocking doors. "We're close to the command center," she whispered. "Just a few more meters." As they neared their target, the team encountered heavier resistance. Zark soldiers, alerted to their presence, launched a fierce counterattack. The humans fought back with unmatched determination, their weapons blazing in the dim light. Commander Vega took point, guiding the team through the intense firefight. "Keep moving. We need to reach that command center," she ordered. They finally reached the command center's entrance, a heavily fortified door. Kapoor worked quickly to hack the control panel, her fingers flying over the interface. Just a few more seconds, the door slid open, revealing the heart of the Zark's flagship. Banks of computers and holographic displays filled the room, manned by stunned Zark's officers. Reynolds and his team stormed in, taking out the guards and securing the area. "Kapoor, shut it down," Reynolds ordered, covering her as she moved to the central console. The Zark's officers put up a desperate fight, but the humans' resolve was unbreakable. Kapoor accessed the command systems, her mind focused and precise, disabling the fleet's command network. "Now," Kapoor announced, pressing a final sequence of keys. The lights flickered, and the holographic displays went dark. The Zark's fleet outside suddenly found themselves without centralized coordination, their movements becoming erratic and disorganized. The boarding team fought their way back to the shuttle, and with the Zarks in disarray, they launched from the flagship and returned to the Resolute, their mission a success. On the bridge of the Resolute, the crew watched as the Zark's fleet struggled to regroup. "This is our chance," Reynolds declared. "All ships, focus fire on the remaining Zark's vessels. Let's finish this." The Resolute and the Allied ships launched a final, decisive assault. The Zarks, now leaderless and disorganized, couldn't withstand the combined might of the humans and their allies. One by one, enemy ships fell, and the battle for Larus was won. The victory over the Zark's flagship was a significant turning point, but it came at a heavy cost. The team returned to the Resolute to a hero's welcome, but their celebration was short-lived as reports of heavy casualties and extensive damage flooded in. The reality of war's toll was unmistakable. Lieutenant Kapoor, who had played a crucial role in disabling the Zark's command network, had been critically injured during the retreat. She lay in the medical bay, her condition unstable. Dr. Carter and her team worked tirelessly to stabilize her, but the prognosis remained uncertain. Captain Reynolds visited Kapoor, standing silently beside her bed. Her bravery had turned the tide of the battle, and her sacrifice was a stark reminder of the price of their victory. "You did us proud, Arya," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "We wouldn't have made it without you." As the Resolute's crew dealt with their losses, the Larians continued their evacuation. High Chancellor Era, grateful beyond words, coordinated with Commander Vega to ensure every Larian was accounted for and safely transported. The combined efforts of the humans and Larians fostered a growing bond between the two species. Meanwhile, Reynolds and his officers held a war council to discuss their next move. The Zark's fleet, though heavily damaged, still posed a threat. The recent battle had bought them time, but a permanent solution was needed. "We've received intel that the remaining Zark's forces are regrouping at a nearby star system," Captain Hunter began. "They're likely planning a counterattack." Reynolds nodded. "We can't let them regroup and strike again. We need to take the fight to them and ensure they can't threaten anyone else." Dr. Carter entered the room, her face drawn but determined. "Lieutenant Kapoor is stable for now, but she's not out of the woods yet. She'd want us to finish what we started." "Then we will," Reynolds said, his voice filled with steely determination. "We owe it to Kapoor, to our fallen comrades, and to the Larians." With the decision made, the Resolute prepared for the next phase of their mission. Despite their fatigue, the crew was galvanized by their recent victory and the knowledge that their actions could bring lasting peace. Captain Reynolds knew they couldn't do it alone. They needed allies. He initiated contact with several nearby civilizations, many of whom had remained neutral in the conflict. The story of humanity's defense of the Larians had spread, and the galaxy was watching. The first to respond was the Trila Confederacy, a technologically advanced but isolationist race. Their representative, Ambassador Zara, appeared on the Resolute's view screen. "Captain Reynolds," she said, "the Trila Confederacy has monitored your actions. Your bravery and dedication to justice have impressed us. We are prepared to join your cause." Next was the Oro, a warrior race known for their honor and combat prowess. Their leader, Warlord Cog, offered his support. "Humans, you have shown great strength and honor in protecting the weak. The Oro will stand with you against the Zarks." The responses from other species were similarly positive. The Vair, the Alori, and even the Enixils pledged their support. Humanity's fierce defense of the Larians had inspired a coalition of races united against the Zark's threat. With the Allied fleet assembled, Reynolds addressed his crew and their new allies. "We stand on the brink of a new era. Our unity and determination will see us through. Together, we will bring an end to the Zark's threat and secure a future of peace and cooperation." The combined fleet moved out, each ship ready for the final confrontation. The journey to the Zark's regrouping point was tense, with every crew member aware of the stakes. The fleet emerged from hyperspace to find the Zark's forces preparing for another assault. Reynolds stood on the bridge of the Resolute, his eyes fixed on the enemy fleet. "All ships, this is it. Engage the Zarks and show them the power of our unity. For humanity, for the Larians, and for the future of our galaxy." The battle began in earnest, with the Allied fleet launching a coordinated assault on the Zarks. Though still formidable, the enemy was taken aback by the sheer number and determination of the Allied forces. Ships clashed in a dazzling display of firepower and tactics, each side fighting with everything they had. On the Resolute, the crew worked with practiced precision. Hunter directed the ship's weapons with deadly accuracy while Kapoor, recovering in the medical bay, provided critical technical support through the comms. Dr. Carter and her team braced for the incoming casualties, ready to do whatever it took to save lives. As the battle raged on, the Allied fleet began to gain the upper hand. The Zarks, without their central command structure, struggled to maintain cohesion. One by one, their ships fell to the relentless onslaught of the Allied forces. Finally, the flagship of the Zark's fleet was disabled, its weapons silenced and its engines failing. Captain Reynolds seized the moment, ordering a ceasefire. "This is Captain Ethan Reynolds of the United Earth Federation," he said. "Zark's forces, you are defeated. Surrender now, and you will be treated with honor and respect." Realizing their hopeless situation, the Zarks began to power down their weapons and engines. The battle was over, and the threat of the Zarks had been neutralized. The Allied fleet celebrated their hard-won victory. The true triumph came from the unity and cooperation that had brought the Allied forces together for the first time. Races that had once been indifferent or even hostile to one another now stood side by side, united by a common cause and a shared vision of a better future. The defeat of the Zark's flagship marked a turning point, but the battle was far from over. Although the Zark's forces were in disarray, pockets of resistance remained, and the Allies needed to ensure the threat was fully neutralized. The Allied fleet, victorious but weary, had suffered its share of casualties. The final push would require every bit of strength they had left. Captain Reynolds stood on the bridge of the Resolute, rallying his crew for the final assault. "We've come this far and we can't falter now," he said. "We need to root out the remaining Zark's forces and make sure they can never threaten anyone again. This is our final stand." The Allied fleet advanced, targeting the remaining Zark's ships with precision. Each ship played a critical role, their combined firepower overwhelming the fragmented Zark's resistance. The Zarks, once confident and dominant, now fought desperately, their morale shattered by the loss of their flagship. Commander Vega coordinated with the Allied commanders to ensure a unified and strategic approach. "Focus on their power centers and weapon systems," she ordered. "We need to disable their ability to fight back without causing unnecessary destruction." As the Allied ships moved in, the Resolute led the charge. Lieutenant Hunter's tactical brilliance shone through as he directed the ship's weapons, hitting key Zark systems with pinpoint accuracy. The Allied fleet methodically dismantled the Zark's defenses, their resistance weakening with each passing moment. In the midst of the battle, Lieutenant Kapoor, still recovering but determined to contribute, provided crucial technical support from her position in the medical bay. She analyzed the Zark systems, identifying vulnerabilities and relaying the information to the bridge. "Captain, I found a weakness in their secondary power grid," Kapoor communicated through the ship's intercom. "If we target it, we can disable their remaining weapons." Reynolds relayed the information to the fleet. "All ships, adjust your targeting to the coordinates provided by Lieutenant Kapoor." Let's finish this. The Allied ships followed the directive, focusing their fire on the specified targets. Explosions rippled through the Zark's fleet as their power systems failed, rendering their ships defenseless. The battle reached its climax, with the Allied forces pressing their advantage and pushing the Zarks to the brink of collapse. Finally, with a series of coordinated strikes, the last of the Zark's ships were disabled. The void of space, once filled with the chaos of battle, fell silent. The Allied fleet, battered but unbroken, stood victorious. A cheer erupted across the bridge of the Resolute as the crew celebrated their hard-fought victory. Reynolds allowed himself a moment of relief, knowing their sacrifices had not been in vain. "We did it," he said, his voice filled with pride. "We've secured a future for the Larians and shown the galaxy the strength of unity." The aftermath of the battle revealed the true cost of their victory. The Allied fleet, though triumphant, bore the scars of the conflict. Ships were damaged and the medical bays were filled with the wounded. The cost in lives weighed heavily on everyone, a sobering reminder of the price of peace. Captain Reynolds ordered a full assessment of the damage and immediate aid for the injured. Dr. Carter and her medical team worked tirelessly, treating the wounded from all species. Their unity in action reflected the spirit of their alliance. As repairs began, High Chancellor Era and a delegation of Larians boarded the Resolute to formally thank the crew. Era, her gratitude evident, addressed Reynolds and his officers. "Captain Reynolds, the Larians owe you and your allies a debt that can never be repaid," she said. "Your bravery and sacrifice have saved our people and our world." Reynolds, humbled by the praise, responded, "Chancellor Era, it was an honor to stand with you. Our victory was only possible because of the unity and cooperation of all our allies. Together, we've shown that no threat is insurmountable when we stand together." The Allied commanders convened a council to discuss the future. The Zark's threat had been neutralized, but the galaxy remained a complex and often dangerous place. They agreed to form a coalition dedicated to mutual defense and cooperation, ensuring that no race would ever have to face such a threat alone again. Warlord Cog of the Oro stood, his imposing figure a symbol of strength. "The Oro are honored to stand with such worthy allies. Together, we will ensure the peace and safety of our worlds." Ambassador Zara of the Trila Confederacy added, "The Trila have long remained isolated, but this alliance has shown us the power of unity. We pledge our support to this coalition." The formation of the Galactic Defense Coalition was formalized, with representatives from each allied race signing a charter of mutual aid and cooperation. The Resolute's actions had not only saved the Larians, but had also laid the foundation for a new era of galactic unity. As the dust settled and the fleets began to disband, the Larians started the arduous task of rebuilding their world. The Resolute remained in orbit, providing assistance and resources to help with the reconstruction. The bond between humans and Larians grew stronger, their shared experiences forging a lasting friendship. Captain Reynolds stood on the bridge, looking out at the planet below. The scars of battle were still visible, but so was the resilience and determination of the people. "We've come a long way," Captain Reynolds mused, reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. Commander Vega joined him, her expression thoughtful. "The galaxy has changed, Captain. We've shown that together we can face any challenge," she said. Reynolds nodded, a sense of hope filling him. "Indeed, and as long as we stand together, the future is bright." The Resolute's mission had come to an end, but its legacy would endure. The story of their bravery and the alliance they forged would be remembered as a turning point in galactic history. The crew of the Resolute, having faced the darkest of times and emerged victorious, set course for home, knowing that their actions had paved the way for a brighter future for all. The victory over the Zarks and the formation of the Galactic Defense Coalition marked the beginning of a new era. Larus, though scarred by war, became a symbol of hope and resilience. The planet transformed into a hub of interstellar cooperation, where different species worked together to rebuild and strengthen their bonds. Inspired by the bravery and unity shown by humans and their allies, High Chancellor Era initiated the establishment of the Galactic Alliance Center on Larus. This center would serve as the permanent headquarters for the coalition, fostering diplomacy, shared technology, and mutual defense strategies. Captain Reynolds and the crew of the Resolute were honored guests at the inauguration ceremony. The event was a grand affair, attended by dignitaries from across the galaxy. Flags of different civilizations fluttered in the breeze, and representatives mingled, their differences set aside in favor of a shared future. Era stood at the podium, her voice strong and hopeful. Today, we stand united, not just as Larians, humans, or Trila, but as members of a greater galactic family. Our victory over the Zarks has shown us that together, we can overcome any challenge. Let this center be a beacon of hope and cooperation for all future generations. Standing beside her, Reynolds felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The sacrifices made by his crew and by allies like Lieutenant Kapoor had paved the way for this moment. The unity and purpose in the air were palpable, and he knew they had achieved something truly remarkable. After the ceremony, Reynolds mingled with other dignitaries. Warlord Cog approached him, a rare smile on his usually stern face. "Captain Reynolds, you and your crew have earned the respect of the Oro. Our people have much to learn from your example of courage and honor," Cog said. Reynolds shook his hand firmly. "The feeling is mutual, Warlord Cog. Together, we've shown what's possible when we set aside our differences and work towards a common goal." Ambassador Zara joined them, her voice filled with gratitude. The Trila Confederacy was hesitant to engage with other civilizations, but this alliance has opened our eyes. We are committed to this new path of cooperation. As the evening progressed, the sense of camaraderie grew. Different species shared their cultures, food, and stories, forging bonds that went beyond mere alliances. It was a celebration of unity and the promise of a brighter future. If you appreciated the story and wish to show your support, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Additionally, for each comment containing 88, I will heart every single one. Thank you for your time.